I think we have a hard stop at 4, so.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Megan is on now.
4. Go ahead. Rachel just had an echo from the live stream.
Yeah. Hi, Megan.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for joining. Okay, so starting with approval of the minutes from our February meeting.
I would make a motion, but I wasn't there, so I'm not sure I'm the right one.
Yeah, and I don't know if I can because I'm a staff member.
No, and I'm not sure of in Michael's stead if Megan is a vote, but we could just push the approval of minutes off to the next meeting. That's not a problem.
Okay.
We'll have to.
Or
Okay.
later in the meeting, you know, if
If
Jason pops on soon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, sounds good. All right. So last time, and not just the February 5th meeting, but then the meeting after, we talked a lot about our IDA goals and provided some feedback to Merrill and John. I don't know if they've had a chance to review anything or get back to us. No, they haven't. Okay.
I haven't heard anything back now, and I did check my email for that.
Okay, so then maybe we'll wait and talk about that next time.
Yeah.
In terms of our goals, on page 2 of the agenda, it's basically kind of what we wrote up. So we talked about sending like an email to each subcommittee as a draft that they could use and edit however they like to then send out to any new subcommittee members. And this would request various information so that we have a sense of the makeup of each subcommittee and the commission in total. So I wanted to get a sense. I mean, I think we definitely want to make sure that it comes across as being a voluntary effort, that we're, people don't have to complete these things, but that we would like to receive this information and that it just is helpful to us. So, I mean, that's in terms of like the tone of the email, that's kind of what I was thinking, that it's kind of friendly, but still having a bit of, I don't know, some sort of gravitas to ensure that people understand that we really would like to have this information. Does that sound okay? Or do we want to err on the side of being like even more open to them not providing the information?
I think I agree with you. I think making it less still optional, but strongly encouraged, something along those lines.
I mean, I think if we're going to the effort of doing this and going to the effort of sending everyone the email and we're creating form and we're really like, this is a priority for us. So I think that it needs to be somewhat strongly worded.
Yeah.
Okay.
And yeah. But I think stressing the fact that it's anonymous, and I think we should not have an ability for people to put their name on it. Because I don't want any identifying information. So,
Okay. Got it.
mostly because I think if we had any identifying information, we would have to release it if asked for it, and I just don't feel
Hmm.
comfortable with that, so.
Okay, so stress anonymity and voluntary nature.
I'm wondering, and this might, on the state website, on any forms, is there some kind of language for any information submitted could be subject to FOIA?
Hmm.
I haven't
Interesting.
seen it that I can think of, but I'm wondering if that is something that we want to.
That's interesting. Denise may know.
You know, I'm just thinking about what you're talking about. And I know this is a thorny issue because it's very difficult. You're supposed to find out if you have balance on your committees, and yet you can't ask anybody anything. It's got to have been confronted by many other people somewhere. I mean,
Yeah.
we're the one, the Secretary of State was the one that was keeping the balance of the boards and commissions. I'm not sure how we did it. We did face the same issue, though. I remember it very vividly.
So we talked
Do you
about
know,
it at our
Ariane?
last meeting, and Ariane shared the
Oh.
survey that the Secretary of the State's office does, and it is anonymous,
Mhm.
Okay.
but strongly encouraged. Because there's no way to make sure people have filled it out if it's anonymous, so. I will say Michael Warner did not think it was optional.
Which, yeah, which seems good.
Well, I don't
mean,
think yeah, it probably is. It's not an optional thing. And all you can do when this comes up is say, look, we tried. I mean, that's part
Yeah.
of what we're doing here. I mean, we can't just not do it. And I think we ought to make it pretty clear that it is not optional, personally.
Okay.
I don't know.
Perfect.
mhm.
Yeah, and I think we can stress not optional, but 100% anonymous. And I think she might have declined it. Okay. I think she is out of town, actually. Okay. All right. And
Okay, so in terms of Cindy, would you like me to draft this email and just like send you a preliminary draft? Did you want to? I don't know what's easier for you.
either is fine. I don't know if you have access to the email that was sent from the secretary's office and if it would be easy to just retool that. I remember you sent me
Yeah.
a survey. I can't remember if you sent me the email.
Yeah, yeah. And there were a couple of different emails. Because I think it was like, oh yeah, report. Yeah, see, we basically cited the statutes that say that we must release this gender and racial composition report. And so I'm sure that made people know that it was not optional.
Which I think is
Just
fine
looking.
because we are a public commission, so we have to adhere to the same statutes, I think, technically.
Yes. And
Okay,
particularly for this commission, I think it's very important.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think we probably just have to hound people a little bit. You know, we
Yeah.
always had to do that for all the boards and commissions. It takes manpower to do it. In this case, I don't think we have to be quite as persistent, but I do think we should make it clear that we need to get this in.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just, yeah, everyone will understand it. I'm sure it's just on everybody's back burner. You know how it is.
Yeah. Okay, so there'll be one going out to like everyone in the commission saying that we want you to
Yeah.
report on yourself. And then there'll be one going out to all the subcommittee chairs saying, please forward this to all your subcommittee members so that they then fill it out.
Right.
Yeah,
Perfect.
okay.
Did I get one of these? I don't remember seeing it. If I did.
No,
Did
we
I?
haven't sent it yet.
Oh, okay, great. All right. Thought maybe I missed something.
No, we talked about sending it at our February meeting, and that's where we are.
Yeah,
But
yeah. Okay,
Okay.
so I'll draft it and then I'll kind of base it on a little bit on this email that the secretary's office did earlier. And then you guys can review it and tweak it however you'd like. So in terms of the online form, how are we going to go about that? Is that something that you all will put together on your end so that you have access to like all the information and okay.
yeah,
And do we need to go over what information needs to be captured, or do you pretty much know that?
I can't find, for some reason, the email you sent with the survey information. And I'm wondering, is it possible that it was
Yeah.
sent as a um like in the chat of our last meeting, and that's why I can't find it?
No, it was, I'm gonna just send it. right
Thank you.
now to everyone. Well, so this is the email. So here's the email to send. And then well, you can see the actual report actually in the link of Jacqueline's email.
The link of what?
And so what I
Oh.
sent you was the email that was sent out. And if
Okay, here it
you
is.
if you click on oh wait, so that was actually like, yeah, the actual report.
Okay, so the data collection worksheet or the member self-reporting worksheet? Okay, so it seems like the data collection is our aggregated information. And then the self-reporting worksheet is what we would want people to submit. And that we have sex, gender, and race, ethnicity.
Okay.
And I assume Well, I guess I shouldn't assume. So is that all the information we would want to collect? I think just what we can point at the statute and say, this is what we have to collect, and so this is what we'll have to share.
Yep, and then I just found, so I just found the email for asking people to access the submission form. So, okay, so if you click on the link in the email that I just sent you.
Yep.
That is a better
Okay.
link. And then you click where it says the form can be found by clicking here.
Great.
Okay.
Yeah, no,
Um,
it's all helpful and straightforward.
Okay,
So it'd be easy to create.
great. And was any of this brought up at the commission meeting? No.
No, it was a packed agenda and Merle was not there.
Okay,
Was out
but
of-
Meryl and John already know about this or no? Maybe not.
Not yet.
Okay.
So can kind of, I think once you create the email, I'll create the form and then we can share it as a way to collect this information.
Mhm.
The only thing that I can see them coming back and asking about is if we want to collect any kind of disability information, and I don't know what the answer to that is.
Hmm.
Like if there is any other way we want to think about the commission being representative, but
Mhm.
like I said earlier, I think the struggle with going beyond the statute is that people already feel uncomfortable giving this information, and if we go beyond the statute, we can't point at the statute for why we're collecting it anymore.
Mhm.
So it just makes the conversation more complicated. I don't think that it necessarily means it's a right or wrong answer. Because we could always do, these two questions are mandatory,
Right.
and beyond that, any questions are optional.
Yeah.
Which could be one way to deal with it.
Yeah. I actually really like that. And in the email, we could explain that, all and any information provided is very helpful to us, but note that several questions are optional.
Yeah, and I think the other thing to keep in mind also is even here, the questions are mandatory, but you also are able to answer prefer not to say.
Mm-hmm.
So that does, yeah, it makes it a lot easier to even make the questions
Mhm.
required because people can opt out of them if they so choose.
Right.
Which was also kind of at CT Humanities, our internal way of dealing with
Mm.
a similar survey that we're using with the board and staff to look at
Mhm.
our makeup. So. And
Yeah, I think that's a really good point too. Maybe we review with Merrill and John
Mhm.
and get their feedback on which way might be better. I think it'd be better to make everything mandatory if we could. If we have that prefer not to say option.
Yeah. And Sheldon, do you mind sharing the CTH survey at all? Because I'd like to think about what the questions are in there. Because
Sharing with the committee afterward, you or Ariane, or put it.
the subcommittee, I mean, can we share the draft survey that you have just to look at really quickly, or do you?
Oh, right now? I'm
Yeah.
sorry. Okay.
No, don't worry.
Yeah, I'll throw a link in the chat.
It's a draft, it's not finalized, it hasn't been approved by anyone yet, but it's just the questions that we're considering asking. And I mean, they're all mostly demographic. Well, I think they're all demographic, but just a little more in depth.
Mhm.
Cindy, I'm just gonna turn it into like a PDF and then I'll throw it in the chat.
Beautiful. Thank you, Sheldon. And so then looking at looking at the agenda, the other questions we were hoping to think about were who will host the form, and so we'll take care of hosting the form, but so who will have access to the form and reporting? And I'm okay with being, so I know the Secretary of the State's office puts all the data out there. And so I think I'm okay with following that precedent. I don't know why we would want to hide the information if we're collecting it.
That we only do every 2 years, as far as I understand, like in a formal way. So I mean, if you wanted it to be public, we could hold a report like as of X date, like where we hold all the other, agendas and everything for the commission.
Yeah, no, I wasn't meaning having it on the Secretary of the State's website. I was meaning the data for the 2023 survey, for example, is public there. So I wonder if we have a page on the 250th website that is like reports, which is where we put the annual report to the governor. So we could put kind of we can call it I can't remember what this is called.
Yeah.
The boards and commissions membership diversity reporting. We could put that on that same reports page and include a link to the data if anybody wants to see the data collected. And I don't see an issue with that if it's all anonymous, especially not if requested, we would have to share it anyway. So why make people go fishing for it?
I mean, I really like that as like a very, just like almost a public statement that this is important to you. I hope that this report does show that we're, that the commission and committee members, everything is very diverse. That's my hope. But I think that by putting it out there, it kind of calls attention to this as, you know, a priority for you.
I agree.
Okay, so I'm writing the email, you're putting the form together. And then it will be, and then posting the report on C2250 website.
And I think we can give people a deadline of,
I guess depends when we're able to get it all together and get it out. When's our next full meeting? Is it in the
July.
fall? Oh, it's in July. Okay.
Yeah.
Um,
So we can do it a couple of ways. We can send it out to folks at the July meeting. Or like have people in the room fill it out at the July meeting and then send out the survey to anyone who's not in the room. Or we can try to have the information collected for the July meeting so that we can share it that day, which I kind of like a little better. And yay, thank you, Shelton.
Yeah, it should work. If there's any issue when you open it, just let me know.
Mhm. Um,
I really like trying to get it. Yeah, I'm not able to open it. Sure.
Here, I can share it.
Okay. I really like the idea of being able to share in July. I think we can do it if we can send something out like maybe right after Memorial Day.
I think that sounds good to me because I think the next couple of weeks, people are just finishing up all of the spring stuff. I feel like professors are busy with the end of the semester and had a conversation recently with Andy Horowitz, who also just said he feels like anything should kind of be on pause until after Memorial Day. But I think we can get everything together by then and then send stuff out. And
Yeah.
Do
Yeah,
we-
so we can make that kind of a goal. To finalize everything before like finalize and send, or finalize by June 1st, which is I think a Friday or Saturday, and then maybe that Monday or Tuesday following, try and send out.
that sounds good. Do we want to give folks 2 weeks to submit? On the one hand, a month sounds better, but I actually think giving them some urgency is probably our best bet to get responses.
Yeah. I always feel like the longer you give people, the longer they take to do something. And this is not hard. I mean, it's gonna be 5 or 6 questions.
So the questions we're hoping to ask are, well, one, are you a member of the board or staff? And I think here we can kind of do some check boxes for how they're working with the commission. Are you a commission member? Are you a subcommittee member? And list out the different subcommittees.
Yeah.
And then which of the following best describes you? And it's the race options. And we will make sure these are tied to the secretary's questions, the mandatory questions.
Mhm.
Are you a member of the LGBTQ community? So is this something we would feel comfortable asking?
What do you mean I don't know, but I identify as an ally? Is that like,
Sheldon, can you help with that?
Kind of in the sense that this is taken from maybe last year, so kind of more from last year when we sent along a survey, and I believe Lisa kind of structured out the initial questions. So I didn't generate that specific question, but I'm assuming that it means while you yourself do not identify within that community, you support and show up for friends and those you know who
Okay.
are in the community.
that's kind of what I thought it meant, but I just feel like it seems.
Yeah, if
Yeah.
it's confusing, or we
Yeah,
can
it's,
pull out,
Yeah.
however best for
Yeah.
the commission.
Yeah. I'm editing your doc. No, I saved this one on my hard drive, so we're good. Do you have a disability such as a physical disability, a cognitive or learning disability, sensory sensitive? I feel like I might rephrase this one to be more in line with the other questions. And something along the lines of, do you identify as being part of the I don't know. I'd have to kind of look at how other things phrase it, but
Mhm.
I'm wondering if there's like I like do you identify as being a part of the blank community?
Mhm.
But I don't know what that. Because the phrasing on this one is strange, but I do like the idea behind it.
Mhm. Yeah.
And then I don't think we need to know what they need for support. Because I think that's not the purpose of this.
Right.
And then we ask age, which I think is interesting. I like the idea of
Mhm.
collecting age information.
Me too.
Okay. And then gender. And then we'll leave out the zip code.
Yeah.
So if we're okay with these questions, I can work on cleaning up the way they're phrased and making it more
Mhm. Yeah.
more consistent, just kind of one consistent way of asking it all the way down.
Yep.
So yeah.
Yeah, I think it works. I think it
Okay.
works. All right. So I wasn't. So it sounds like. Okay, so we had talked about doing the EDA guidelines, but I guess it wasn't us doing them necessarily. So that's been given to a different subcommittee.
I don't know who's doing it, but they also came to the same idea that
Oh,
it
okay.
needs to be done. And I don't have my notes right in front of me, but they were talking about an ADA guidelines document. And actually, it was more in the lines of a self-assessment, both a guidelines document and also a self-assessment for organizations. And it's all coming back to me now.
That's a great idea. I like that self-assessment.
So their thought, which I think we were all in agreement that it was a great idea, was to take the guiding values and think about all the things that we ask of people. So, because that statement includes physical like ADA type access. It also includes making sure to be nonpartisan, I believe, somewhere in there. And it also includes there was something else. Something along the lines of basing ourselves in good history. And I forget exactly, but like, so we were thinking of some kind of self-assessment that is along the lines of, did you access primary source documents? What, like,
And
what are
this is for their projects or whatever it is that these outside groups want to
Yeah.
do. Okay. Yeah. I like that even as a starting point, like a
Yeah.
self-assessment of like, or like, I think, like, in my opinion, I'm thinking we will need to provide like helpful tools to groups and community leaders who want to do some type of project to get them thinking along certain lines before they even start, so that it's not, you know, after they're well underway or it's completely finalized and then they're like, oh, let's go through the guideline to be sure we've done everything, but
Yeah.
as like a starting point.
Yeah. And the general thought was, I think the general conclusion was that we would not collect these self-assessments, but really use it as a way to, or perhaps collect self-assessments for certain things that we're providing. And I'm not sure if we're sponsoring over a certain level, we want to see your self-assessment, for example. But in general, provide them so that people can use it as a starting point to have conversations about how they could improve the work that they're doing.
Yeah,
I
think
like,
that's great. I like that
yeah.
a lot.
And so, but with that, they were hoping that there would be self-assessment, but also like a guidelines type document that would explain what we mean by XYZ.
Yeah.
Including one that, because Liz kept saying that she feels like it's very important to make sure people understand what ADA accessible means and what that requires, because she feels, based on her work with organizations around the state, that lots of people don't really know. Like, providing accommodations for a disability is not optional if you receive any kind of federal money. And I don't know if people know that necessarily.
Probably not. I forget if I talked to you that we've spoken with different, like we spoke with the Center of the Blind a while ago, for example, and they didn't, just like their board members and their director were not familiar with the ballot marking machine, or that people like that curbside voting exists, like just certain things around like the accommodations that are available. And these are people very much in the community, that particular community, and you know, didn't know, or at least weren't overly familiar with this. So that's one of our goals this summer, is to put out a video series around different topics around voting and ADA. I wonder if there are certain things that are just better explained in a video, and if that could be worked on in some way. I don't know if there are people on the commission who have like interns that could work on some of this. But I think it's hard if everything's gonna be like in a written document. There's a lot and it can be very technical.
Yeah.
And I wonder if like at least a few items being in a video would be easier.
Yeah, I think it's possible, and I don't think we'll necessarily have someone unless, Rachel, you are really eager to be on video and start making videos. It is not where I want to be. Um, live streaming these meetings is about as public as I want.
Yeah.
But that said, I think Liz might be able to help with some of it. I think other people might be able to help with other parts of it. And I think our next steps and something that I'm hoping to, so on Friday, Rachel and I are gonna sit down and really think through the next 7 months and kind of the work that we need to get through. And so I think part of that is making an outline of what kind of information we want to make available to the public, and then think about how we're delivering that and who can help. And I think once we have an outline of it, we can share it with the commission and kind of get volunteers for different parts of it. Because I'm
Yeah.
hopeful that John will be helpful with some of the ADA stuff. Liz has some resources, and like a self-assessment that her office has already developed for organizations. And it's like a 40-page document, so I think that we might want to cut down a little bit. But maybe we don't, because it does provide a lot of, it's kind of step by step. Is there handicap accessible parking? From the parking lot, can somebody in a wheelchair get into your building? What type of help would they need to do that? So it really is like a
Yeah.
breakdown. And a way to think about it. So. But I don't think any one subcommittee can do all of it. So. That outline and then getting some feedback, I think will be helpful.
Yeah. Okay. So, I know we talked about us trying to monitor the other subcommittees' decision-making, to ensure that, you know, they were following, that they always have our IDA mission and principles in the forefront of their decision-making. I guess this was like a big piece of what we sent to John and Merrill, so we'll need to wait and see on that. Aside from that, are there other things at this point that our subcommittee should be working on?
I'm looking at the list that we created. I think those are the big things. I think our conversation today will help with kind of that first metric that we talked about. Just in terms of assessing diversity and representation. And then I think hopefully we'll hear back from John and Merle soon and can have another conversation about the IDEA pledge or statement, and then thinking about how we evaluate that inclusion. And I think that would be a great conversation to have at our next internal meeting in August. And then I
Okay.
think, yeah,
Okay, so we'll focus on the email and the form or survey. Getting that all out to everybody
yeah,
for the July meeting, and then hopefully we get our feedback and then we can move forward on other things, maybe.
yeah.
Okay.
And I think that last one, looking back at, oh, I just remembered, I'm sorry. So looking at number 5 on the governance suggestions, and we said we'll work with John to better understand the best practices we should be using. I will say that CTH is taking one of the comments made at the last governance committee meeting, and we're looking at hosting the July meeting at a different place that is one, hopefully easier for John to access, honestly, because he's still having issues with the old state house and getting in, and because their button is still broken, so he can't get into the building without calling somebody to come open a door for him. So thinking about that, but then also thinking about what communities we want to be including in the process and where we're hosting meetings. So don't have a decision made yet, but are strongly considering the Pequot Museum given our last conversation, and then creating a rubric, I'll call it, for kind of both the logistical and the other needs that we have. So logistical, we need to be able to seat this many people in there and have access to a screen and a video, but then also like ideally this is a target community that we want to reach as members of the commission. And this is a part of the state that the commission hasn't had a lot of representation in. So we're hoping to show people that we care about them. So,
Yep.
Yeah, so stay tuned. We'll try to decide on the location with at least a month's notice so that people can plan, because I do know a lot of folks do work in Hartford, so if it's not going to be in Hartford, we need to let people know with enough time to plan their day. But
Okay. Great, that's exciting.
yeah, I promise we're listening. We don't always make changes quickly, but we listen.
It's hard. All this planning, it's a lot.
Yeah,
You guys are doing a great job.
we're trying.
Yeah.
Um,
All right, so I guess we will approve the minutes next time.
Yeah.
And anything else?
Oh, we will get this survey taken care of via email, and probably rope in Merle and John into that email just to get any feedback before sending it out to the whole group. But it's step 1, and then we'll just keep going from there.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Well, good seeing you all.
Ditto.
And talk to you soon, I'm sure.
Yeah, and thanks for all your help with everything.